Hey everybody, Sharon here from VidGamiac.com. Here we are today starting the Overwatch Archives event, and we're going for the Molten Cores achievement. This one can be done whenever the challenge missions are going to be available in the arcade. This one is going to be a remix of Uprising, so make sure you select this one. For your team build, I'm going to recommend you run Bastion, Orisa, Lucio, and Mercy. So a pretty decent build. You have two very high DPS characters and two healers. Alright, you're going to start in the subway tunnel like a normal Uprising mission. The gimmick with this challenge remix is it's going to be Uprising on expert difficulty. However, every enemy you kill is going to drop a pool of lava. It's going to damage you if you walk over it, very similar to Torbjorn's ultimate, so make sure after you kill something you try to get away from a safe distance, or just hang back and then kill things from a safe distance. Make your way out on the street. Make sure you try to take out all of the enemies right here on the street. Again, make sure you try to take them out from far away. Having Orisa and Bastion is going to provide some really good firepower, but the Lucio and the Mercy are going to have to keep up with healing, as everyone is going to take a bunch of damage, especially if you start blowing through all of the enemies, or you get a bunch of enemies that you can't help but try to take care of from a close distance. Make your way onto the first point. What you want to do is make sure you have the Mercy stand in the corner on this desk right here. That's going to be a really good place to stand since you are still on the point and you should be able to capture it. Bastion is going to enter turret mode right here. Orisa is going to pop up her shield in front of the Bastion. Bastion is going to watch the left side of the garage. Orisa is going to watch the staircase. And then everyone's just going to hang around here and then capture the first objective. Lucio is just going to bounce back and forth. His passive healing is going to be super useful for picking everyone up, but do take advantage of his active healing or his damage depending on what the situation calls for. But Bastion's going to do the bulk of the work right here, watching that door to the left, and the Mercy is going to either buff or heal him the whole time depending on what he needs exactly. So without a doubt, the key to doing well in this mission remix is to have the two healers, as that is going to be helpful, so the one healer isn't going to have to bounce back and forth between 2 or 3 damage dealers. Orisa's shield is also going to be very useful, as you can also have the Mercy spend this time trying to buff the Bastion to have extra damage. Once you clear the garage, you can take either one of the two paths to get to the next point. So either take the indoors path or take the street down. Doesn't really matter because they are both going to converge by the time the enemies start showing up. So make sure everyone meets up right here where the two paths do converge. You're going to have an Eradicator right away, so make sure you try to take care of him. Watch out for the lava pool, obviously. And then everyone's going to make their way on to the second point. So try your best to take care of all the enemies here. Make sure you start to take the point once the lava is all cleared. Once it's time to take the point, this is going to be your basic setup. You want to make sure the Bastion is going to prop up in turret mode at the gap of the gate. Orisa is also going to throw up the shield in the same gap, and then you want to have the Mercy hunker down back towards this corner right here, and she's going to be buffing the Bastion the whole time. Bastion is going to be taking care of the street heading in the direction of the church. Orisa is going to be watching the backside, and Lucio is going to be bouncing back and forth, picking up anyone who needs it or doing extra damage if anyone needs any help. Make sure the Mercy player watches their right side, as enemies can spawn near the phone booth, and if that happens, just make sure you call out for it, and then one of the damage dealers can very easily mop it up by just turning slightly to that direction. The Lucio is also going to be a big help right here for taking out the enemies by that phone booth and that staircase, and then hopefully you should be able to control this point very well. Also, watch out for any enemies popping out of the theater. The Mercy player should be able to call for these, as she is going to have a pretty good view of the gun battery. And then once you clean up shop here, it's time to make the push towards the church. Once you do get to the front door of the church, you want to be a little careful here. You don't have anyone on the team with any good damage dealing ultimates. That's going to be the one downside with this build. You have Bastion's tank, but that's not going to be super useful. So just make sure you hang back here. Orisa's going to throw up her shield. Bastion's going to enter turret mode right here. Mercy can hunker down behind this barricade and buff the Bastion, and everyone's just going to lay in to the front door enemies from the safety of Orisa's shield. Make sure all of the lava is all cleared from the front door before you make the push on inside, and be very careful when getting stuck on the doorways. So make sure you try to capture the third point. No enemies should come in from the back. What you want to do is want to make sure you have the Mercy player stand in the back left corner. Bastion is going to set up turret mode on the left side, watching the left door. Orisa is going to watch the right. Orisa is going to throw up her shield to try to protect the biggest area possible. Have everyone's fire focused on the two doorways. Also, make sure you watch out for either one of the two staircases, either the one on the left or the one in the upper right, as enemies can pop in from there. But as long as you keep the pressure up on the front doors, enemies are going to avoid those two spots generally. But Bastion should do a really good job of taking care of all the enemies, especially if he's being buffed from the back by the Mercy player. So this point is going to be pretty easy to capture as long as you keep the firepower up and Orisa throws her shield up whenever she can, and it's going to be very useful if things start to get pushed back your way. Make sure you wrap up capturing the third point, and then it's time to head back out onto the streets. Let the lava clear in front of the church first, obviously, and then watch out for any stragglers between here and the payload. You're going to make your way on to the payload, and then we're going to get ready for the defense portion of the run. So, as like normal uprising, you are going to start the next part until all 4 players get onto the payload. So you can kind of use this time to build up everyone's ultimate or get everyone's health back up. Make sure you watch out for stragglers, as they will still drop lava if you kill them, so make sure you don't get too reckless right here. Basic setup for the payload defense is you want to make sure that the Bastion is going to be at the front of the payload. He's going to enter turret mode. Mercy is going to stand directly behind him and buff him the whole time, and Orisa is going to pop up her shield right here in the center of the payload. So this is going to be a pretty useful setup. Lucio is going to be on the right, Orisa is going to be towards the left, and that way you should watch all of the directions. The scripted events are going to be the exact same as a normal uprising run, so make sure you watch out for those when they do pop up. But thanks to the high DPS of the Bastion combined with the Mercy buffing it, you should be able to have enough firepower to blow through all of the normal enemies rather quickly. So try to kill them from a distance, as you don't want the lava to start damaging the team. But Lucio is going to have to pick up a bulk of the healing work, as you definitely want to keep the firepower on the Bastion going with the Mercy. So make sure you try to have Lucio try to heal the Orisa and the Bastion if they're taking damage, and the Mercy is going to focus on buffing. If you can take the Mercy off of buffing to heal people really quick, but you definitely want to keep Bastion's DPS as high as you can at all times. Orisa is also going to try to keep the shield up as best she can, so make sure you try to bring that back if it does go down, and make sure you are watching out on those shield recharges as well, and you should be able to get through this. First bomb is going to pop up at 2 minutes and 52 from the left. A Bastion ultimate is going to be very useful in these situations, as you definitely want to try to take out the bomb before it can get to the payload. 2 minutes and 32, you're going to have the second bomb come in from the right, so make sure that the Bastion is pointed that way and ready to take it out. It's not going to be enough time to build up another ultimate right here, so try your best to spot that bomb and then try your best to take it out using the firepower. Mercy is definitely going to want to utilize their buff right here. If things start to get dicey, you can also have Lucio throw up their ultimate to give everyone some better protection right here. Orisa's ultimate is also going to be very useful, as that is also going to buff the team, and stacking that with Mercy's buffing is going to make the Bastion very powerful. Thankfully, the lava isn't able to touch the top of the payload, so the Mercy and the Bastion should be pretty much completely safe from the lava as long as they're staying on the payload. At 1 minute and 52, you're going to get the first enemy Bastion to pop up. He's going to pick a random side to spawn on. Thankfully, the Bastions aren't going to be too much of a deal breaker, as this isn't going to be legendary difficulty and they shouldn't hit too hard. So you should be able to take it out in a one-on-one duel with our Bastion, and especially if the Bastion is getting buffing. But you definitely want to make sure you take out those Bastion turrets before they can start landing their firepower in. So be quick on them and make sure you call out for them when they do pop up. You're going to have another one at 1 minute and 24. Again, it's going to be random, so make sure you are staying vigilant for it. Make sure someone calls out for it, and make sure you try to take care of it before it can deal any amount of significant damage. So buff our Bastion, and then in a one-on-one Bastion duel, the buffed Bastion is always going to win, thankfully. Then it's going to be a bit of a gap right here, so make sure you just try to keep up on the healing the best you can. Make sure everyone is brought up to full health. Make sure the shield is up, and then we're going to have our next bomb at 54 seconds come in from the left side. So make sure you are buffing everyone. The Bastion ultimate is going to be very useful for taking out the bombs from a distance, thankfully, so make sure you rely on that, and then everyone's just going to lay into the bomb because you want to make sure you keep that payload safe. Hopefully you don't take too long on the bomb, as there is going to be another Bastion that shows up at 44 seconds, again from a random direction. Make sure you try to keep your Bastion buffed. If the Bastion is going to give you too much trouble and your Bastion doesn't have his ultimate ready, you can use Lucio's ultimate to give everyone a ton of protection, and then you can use that moments of invincibility to quickly work on that bastion. And then we're going to have a bit of a break, 19 seconds. We have the last bomb show up on the left side, and then the last bastion show up shortly thereafter. Thankfully for this part, you just have to run the clock out, so make sure you don't worry too much about killing them. Just make sure you try to keep the bomb away from the payload, and you should be able to get through this part a-okay. But once time runs out, all of the enemies should automatically die, which is going to complete this section, and then we can move on to the next part. Let the lava clear, and then make sure everyone hitches a ride on the payload. We're going to make this push, which is also going to be very difficult. Hopefully your payload still has a pretty good chunk of health left, as you are going to need it intact to get through the payload push. All right, strategy for this one, you want to make sure you have the Bastion sit on the payload and enter turret mode. Then you want the Mercy standing behind him, buffing him the whole time. Orisa's going to throw up her shield, hopefully in the front of the payload and on top of the payload, and you're just going to ride this thing like a parade float. Thankfully, staying on top of the payload should protect both of you from the lava, and the Orisa and the Lucy are going to do their best to watch the backside. Watch out for any tank Bastions that spawn. Again, they can spawn from either 3 directions, so watch your back, watch the front, and watch the little staircase off to the right of the payload. You should be able to make the push a-okay. Make sure you are doing your best to try to take the enemies far away from the team. Bomb is going to come in from the back once you round this corner. Make sure you have the Bastion take their attention away from the front and then just focus their firepower on the bomb, especially if the payload isn't doing too well on health. You definitely want to make sure you try to push that thing back. Once the bomb is taken care of, rounding this corner is going to be pretty difficult, as it is going to be a pretty tight corridor. Mercy's instant revive is going to come in a ton of help right here, so make sure you rely on that if someone does go down, which is more likely than not going to be the Lucio and the Orisa, as they are going to be on the ground level and dealing with that lava. Make sure Orisa starts to move her shield towards the back, and make sure you keep an eye out for that first tank Bastion that shows up. Once he does, make sure you prioritize taking him out, as he is going to do a significant amount of damage to the payload and the players. So again, make sure you are trying to buff the Bastion, and then make sure you try to take it out before it can land any significant amount of damage. Then try your best to clean up the normal enemies. Again, watch out for that lava. Hopefully you should be able to get through it a-okay. And then just make sure you take this last turn right here nice and steady. This last push to the door can be a little tight, so make sure Bastion has his ultimate ready in case you do need it. Make sure you are careful and keeping an eye out on every direction. So just make sure you watch out for any slicers who are giving you the slip. Mercy is also going to probably have to do some cleanup right here if everyone gets spread too far apart. So make sure you switch over to Pistol Mercy, and then you can take care of the few slicers. So Mercy's ultimate's also going to be really good if you need to get to people quickly. But once you do notice that tank Bastion pop up, you want your Bastion to throw out his ultimate, as you are going to want to try to take out the tanks the best you can. There's going to be a ton of lava right here, so do your best to try to keep everyone safe. Watch out for that tank Bastion. Make sure you don't let him surprise you, and then you should be able to make that last push. Hopefully the payload has enough health to get to the door, and if you can get it to the door, you should clear this part, and then we're going to make our way into the final area. Once you get that door open, make sure Orisa throws up her shield in the gap of the doorway, and then you can use the doorway as a little funnel to funnel all of the enemies who are going to be heading your direction. Orisa's ultimate's going to be very useful here, as you're going to buff the Bastion, and the Bastion should be able to take everyone out as they are going to be funneled through this choke point. So make sure you try to keep the firepower up, and then make sure you kill the oncoming traffic going your way. So try your best to take out the first Orisa, and then we're just going to make our push. Once you take out the Orisa, though, the tank Bastion isn't going to be too far behind, so make sure you're keeping an eye out for him. But just make sure you slowly make your way up. This isn't going to be legendary difficulty, so make sure you don't worry too much about dealing with the turrets immediately, but you definitely want to get on them once you have a moment. So we're going to patiently wait here by the front door for that first tank Bastion to spawn, as we are going to definitely want to deal with him when he's all by himself right here. If you can, try to pull him outside, but you definitely want to try to kill him here near the front door. So try your best to fight him by himself and not with the other enemies firing you, so try to pull him back a little. But you should be able to take him out pretty quickly with those higher DPS characters. Then just make sure you get everyone's bearings together and then start to push up. Make sure you try to take out that turret Bastion the best you can. He is going to be the major damage dealer here, so be very careful not to stay on the main path too long, as he is going to give us a ton of trouble here. Make sure everyone is nice and safe, and then we're going to start moving towards that turret bastion to take him out. So make sure everyone's healed up a-okay, and then we're going to try to focus on capturing that corner right there. So get everyone to the back right corner, and then just make sure you have everyone push up. Orisa's shield is going to be very useful here, so pop that up. Our bastion's going to pop up in the corner in turret mode, and we should be able to take out that turret bastion a-okay with our super high DPS. Once you take care of the first turret bastion, we're going to try our best to recapture the main corridor right here. So watch out for that. Obviously, try to take people out from a distance. Orisa's shield right here in the smack middle of the corner is going to help out, but your goal is to try to have our bastion snipe the other turret bastion from across the hallway. So make sure you hang back here. Mercy can take a ton of cover in this corner right here. Now, if Orisa's shield starts to go down or a ton of enemies are pushing the middle lane right here, you definitely want to pull the Bastion back and then try to heal it while backing up, as you are going to need a ton of health in order to try to outsnipe that other turret Bastion in that little window right there. Hopefully you can do this in a timely manner, and hopefully you can do this before the second Orisa rounds the next corner. So just try your best to outsnipe the other Bastion with our Bastion, and once you take it out, we should be able to push further up now that the firepower has thinned out a bit. The second Orisa is going to pop up. Bastion's ultimate is going to be super useful here, not only with taking out the Orisa, but dealing with the turret if it's still there. So make sure you use your tank and then just slowly work your way up. Now you're going to be on a little bit of a time crunch, as taking out the second Orisa is going to cause the next tank Bastion to spawn. Make sure everyone's staying vigilant for him and calling out if he does indeed show up. Once he does show up, make sure everyone is staying behind the safety of this turn right here, and everyone is unloading on him. Once you take care of the second tank Bastion, we're going to try to wrap things up and push towards the last two Orisas right here. Do remember that the mission clear is going to be killing all of the Orisas, so don't worry about the normal enemies. The best strategy for this last push is to have the Bastion dance around this corner right here. You can have the Mercy pop up on the high ground, and then you can take turns healing and buffing the Bastion. The Bastion ultimate is going to be very useful for taking people out from a distance, but you want to make sure you stay as far back as you can on this lane to avoid the turret Bastion in the back left corner, and you should be able to take out the two Orisas from a pretty safe distance, thankfully. Try to be a little quick between the kills, as once you kill the third Orisa, the next tank Bastion is going to appear, but in the time it takes for him to get here, you can definitely try to take out the fourth and final Orisa super quickly. So our Orisa is going to throw up a shield, which is going to protect this corridor, and then everyone's just going to unload from a safe distance, which should also avoid any of the lava that drops. If you do manage to take out all of the Orisas, you should have the mission complete, and that's going to be the first of the mission remixes out of the way, and one of the harder ones, thankfully. There's our achievement for clearing it, 15 gamer score. Check back soon at next time for the next one, but that's all there is to it.